I had the opportunity to speak with Laura Tafe about her collage work, which I find bright and bold. She also works as a pathologist and has been able to reintegrate artistic practice into her life as an adult, with a spirit of intentionality and a desire to express different aspects of herself, both to herself and to others. Laura talks about the role of art, creativity, and self-expression in her leading a fully realized life. Paper, through its textures as well as acts of cutting out pieces, is her preferred medium for showing physical bodies and parts in motion and expressing a range of emotions. She shows courage not only in putting her work out in the world, but in exploring language for speaking about what her practice and pieces might mean as she builds communities with others. Here's my conversation with Laura. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today because I really enjoy your collage work and I'm looking forward to hearing more about what
Thank
inspires you
you.
to do the work that you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm happy to chat with you. I really enjoy your podcast, and I think the work that you're trying to do is really great. And I probably have many questions for you too.
That's generous of you, but I'm going to start with you. I'm going to jump right in then and just ask you what first got you started making collage work?
I think probably goes back to when I was a little girl. I loved paper all my life. And I actually tell this story that when I was a small girl, around 3 or 4, I used to carry around a box of paper with me rather than a stuffy. I would carry around a box of paper. And so I remember going on a trip with my mom and dropping my paper in the airport and being so distraught. And we got it picked up. So I think paper is something that's always attracted me. And then, life happened. I work in healthcare, so that kind of took me away from art, I feel like, for many, many years. And then several things happened that really kind of brought me back around to art and ultimately to collage. Some of that is that my mom died unexpectedly in 2014, and that really threw me into a lot of grief. And also, I think I felt a little stuck in my career after a little while and was really at a point of that awful word burnout, I guess you would say, and realized that I needed something different. I was asking myself, is this all there is? What am I missing? And with time, kind of listening to that question, the answer that kept coming back was art and creativity and that form of self-expression. And before I really started going into collage, I noticed that I was, in terms of artists that I like, I was kind of attracted to collage. I've always liked historically Matisse's work and that sort of bright colors and paper and painting as well in that style. And other more modern artists that I was following kind of was the collage theme. And so around 2019 is when I actually convinced myself that this is something I wanted to prioritize. And so I just started making stuff. And it's gone on from there.
I love that because it's one thing to speak with people where art is kind of the focus of their time, or maybe that's how they make a living. But I really appreciate speaking with people who kind of rediscover art
Yeah,
because it was a huge gap and because I
right.
can relate to that. And so I love hearing stories about how people pursued other things for whatever reasons, but then could feel that there was something missing and then actually took the time and put the effort into reestablishing that practice into their lives, which is something that I know that you've done because I've
Yeah.
seen on Instagram all of your, beautiful collages. So
Thank you.
you're focused on it too. I can see that it's an area
Yeah,
of focus for you.
right. And it's really at the point where it's a part of me and a part of who I am. And it's been really important to find out more about myself through this process of doing art and that there is a lot more to me than just my professional identity, which is, of course there is, but sometimes you get lost in that kind of day-to-dayness of your personal work. And so it's been wonderful to have that as a form of self-expression as well as having the courage to finally start sharing it has brought me all kinds of connections and interesting surprises, such as talking to you, that I really would never have anticipated ever happening before. So it's been a wonderful kind of process and journey.
I love that because it's so automatic now. You're like, you meet somebody new, you're like, hello, what's your name? What do
Yeah.
you do?
Hmm.
I,
Right.
I
Exactly.
never know how to answer that question,
Right.
but you're supposed to answer it by saying, what is the way that I make money, maybe, or
Hmm.
where do I put the majority of my time or hours or whatever? But is that what's most meaningful to you? You say, like, what do you do? And Laura says, I make collages. I make
Yeah,
art.
right.
That's great.
Right. Right. And I think part of that has been a little bit of a shift in how I define myself. And so I more talk about myself, I work in healthcare, or, I make art, rather than I am a X, Y, or Z, definitional, which is much more open and inviting, I think, too.
So let's say on a weekly basis, like how do you make room for that practice of art to set aside time for it?
Yeah, I think one thing that I love about collage, at least in my hands, it's fairly fast. It's fairly quick for me. I do usually do it, excuse me, in the evenings, like after work when I'm tired and relatively brain dead. And so I work very intuitively and just kind of let that guide me as to what images I like, kind of what things come together, what kind of emotions I'm feeling, and how it becomes expressed on paper with the various elements around me. So usually I work at night and also sometimes on the weekends, but I do really kind of like following just kind of what interests me at the moment and see where it leads me and continue following that theme for a while if that continues to be interesting and exciting to me. But if not, then I will try something else and go a little bit of a different direction for a while. But I also do very much prioritize it. So has become something where when I decided to prioritize it, I did notice that my priorities shifting. Other things kind of got de-emphasized, and this became a higher level of thing that I wanted to do for myself. So it definitely has kind of wiggled its way into my life and shifted other things around.
I'm a little I don't want to make it about me, but I'm a little jealous, but
Oh no,
I'll try to
tell me
learn
more.
from
I'd
you.
love to hear more about you.
Well, no, we'll talk a little bit more about you first.
Okay, okay.
But I am inspired by that. I also wanted to ask, so you brought it up, but what are the different themes maybe that you're exploring right now in your work?
Right now, a lot of my pieces have been, I think, around motion. I think it's become a little series that I call Bodies in Motion, although I'm not sure if that will be a sticking thing. But I'm using right now black background and cutout fabrics from fashion magazines mostly, and a lot of them have a lot of flow and energy to them. Most of them also capture a body part as part of the piece, because I'm very attracted to the human figure, body spaces. And so right now I'm just really kind of enjoying that interaction of motion on a 2D level that is captured by fabric flowing and interacting with human bodies, and it just feels really good to me. It's a good energy, and it continues to kind of fascinate me. So that's kind of a theme, I guess you would say, that has been coming up lately. In general, I do like forms and bodies, and I find that it's a great place for various emotions to get expressed. So sometimes it's anger, frustration, or grief. A lot of times humor comes out in a kind of a subtle way that sometimes surprises me, but is delightful. So those seems to be things that keep coming my way.
I realize I probably should have asked that before, but then also when you say that you're looking at people and physical form and bodies and things, and you said that you carried around that box of paper, you're a physical paper collage artist, so you
Yes,
don't do
yes.
digital.
I don't do digital. No, I'm
Okay.
very analog.
Okay.
I like the paper. I like the texture of paper and that process of cutting. I like that detail of cutting and rearranging and physically moving things around. So it's very texturally satisfying for me too.
Interesting. Okay, because I was wondering if also that I don't want to overthink it, but like the physicality of the paper and the fact that you're interested in human
Mhm.
figures and actual instantiated beings and things that goes well together.
I mean, my day job is I'm a physician, I'm a pathologist, so I use a microscope a lot for diagnosing diseases and illnesses, and so I have a very visual field. So I think I'm very human inclined, but very visual person. So that it kind of makes sense, perhaps, too, to kind of put those together. The visualness, I think, of collage and art, and the tactileness of moving pieces together and around.
Interesting. That's a whole other thing I hadn't thought about. So
Yeah,
the fact that
yeah,
you're a pathologist, like,
it's a little puzzle solving piece to it too. Like, how do these things fit together? What are they telling me? How am I responding to them? How am I interpreting them?
and the
Yeah,
physical body.
yeah,
Like the fact that
yeah,
that's the object of your study. That's so
right.
interesting. Okay. Was it always that, or is that something you've evolved to?
In terms of the art, or
Yeah, in terms of the art, in terms of focus on the body, on the faces, on the
oh no,
figure.
I've always, pretty much always, I've always been very drawn to the human form. I did a ton of art, like, through high school and kind of petered off in college, but I did life drawing and all that, even back in high school. So always kind of attracted to the human form, always loved anatomy and the science part of the body as well. So those have kind of gone in parallel, I guess you'd say, and just kind of rediscovering how they interact with each other in a broader sense too.
So the fact that you did draw, like you did life study, and
Mhm.
then you also do collage in terms of um I just come at it from like when you're doing life drawing, you're in full control of the piece that you're creating, right? As with collage, you're looking for the pieces that are going to fit together and work. That's not even really a fully formed question. I don't know if you know what I'm going for with that, but like transitioning between the drawing and creating the piece as you want to see it versus I don't know if when you're looking for images, like how intuitive is that? What does that process look like when you're like, what am I going to cut out to include here?
Yeah, it's a mixture of things. Sometimes it's very intentional looking for something that will kind of fit together. Most of the time it's going through things and seeing what images I respond to. And like for the kind of fabric-y stuff that I've been doing lately, I tend to go through a lot of magazines and cut a bunch of things out and then kind of have piles of them on my work area. And then as I sit down to work, I start shifting through piles and rearranging things and seeing how they interact with each other to find like the three or four pieces that work together for me. But sometimes I might have another concept that is a little bit more preconceived so that I'm looking for something, and then I kind of go to the stacks per se of magazines and other materials to kind of find things that fit together with that.
So if I asked you if there's something you're working on now or that you maybe created recently, what inspired you to work through that piece? What were some of the things you were expressing through that piece?
It's a good question.
And I did not send it to you in advance. So I
No,
don't
no,
on the spot. Sorry, Laura.
that's okay. You kind of stumped me on that one.
That was just something that came to me as you were talking
Yeah.
about the process.
And I think I'm not always sure of, and perhaps I'm unpracticed in how to speak about my art. I'm not always sure how to articulate what I do and what it means to me. And I also try not to be overly prescriptive as to what it means to me because I'm very curious on how someone else perceives it and want them to take away their own thing rather than me telling them what I think it is. I probably totally bypassed your question. Yeah, I can't think of a great example. I think with like the fabric pieces right now, it's really kind of a curiosity of how does it make me feel when I'm looking at this and moving things around. And I just it's kind of a joyful process of seeing how these things flow into each other. And there's motion and energy that's created out of that process that I guess I come away with a little bit of boost from that. And there's a satisfaction of having created something. So I guess, another example that just came into mind is back a couple of years ago when the Supreme Court made the Dobbs decision about abortion rights. That sparked like a lot of anger and frustration in me, and one way I dealt with that was going to Collage, and I created a collage of a uterus that said "betrayed by SCOTUS" on it, and so sometimes there's very precise instigators that result in a piece of work, but not always.
Kind of adjacent to that, what does it mean for you to show your art? So I see you on
Oh,
Instagram.
yeah, yeah. No, thank you. I love that question. So when I first started making art, I did not show it to pretty much anyone. And then I had a few trusted individuals that I started to share it with. And then it took me probably another year to share it a little bit more publicly, like on Instagram and Twitter, whatever it's called now. And so I think at first it felt really risky and scary to share that and put it out there. And then I started to get, positive responses from people and started to meet people and kind of grow a community around that. Also, sharing it as a medical person has been important to me because other medical people see it, like on other platforms, not so much Instagram, but other platforms. And that's been important to me because I think it's really important that people are reminded that you're not just your job and you have other aspects of yourself that it's good to develop and to share, and it's okay in a safe space to share that. And also, when I was going through my education, I didn't really have an example of a physician artist out there that probably would have really benefited me to see some people who were doing that and talking about that. And so that's kind of another aspect of why I share, is just to kind of get that more out there, that it's okay to bring these other aspects of yourself into your career life as well. I kind of see that as like a little more the professional side, and then on the art, a little bit more art side, it's really been a wonderful space to kind of build community. I've become a little bit involved with a collage group, and it's just introduced me to people that are also artists that I, wouldn't normally come across in my day-to-day life, which has been a great support and inspiration to have a little bit of that community out of it too.
I was having well, probably mostly a senior moment as you were talking, and I was like, I feel like, I don't know, Francis Bacon, we have it was it Francis Bacon? I don't feel like there's like examples of scientists and medical practitioners who were also artists. Forget
It's
Leonardo da
true. It's
Vinci,
true.
like there's,
Yeah.
but that's in the past. And so today I think it's a lot harder to maybe find examples of people who are
Yeah.
as willing to show that breadth,
Right. Right.
because they might think that you're not taking your profession as seriously if you're
Right.
spending time doing these.
Yeah. And I think the historical figures are good examples, but they're also so distant from your present life.
Yeah.
And I guess I kind of mean too, like people that I immediately would have had contact with or been trained by, so
100%, 100%. And also I realized that they were all men. I just
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
oh, all of
exactly.
these are
That
men.
too.
Oh, not good examples,
That's
not
true. That's
necessarily
true.
good examples. No, no, fair. I just had like a casting back of the mind, but
But
yeah,
I
no, fair.
but I I totally agree that I think art and science are so important to one another, and they really do inform each other, or can, and creativity is really relevant for both of them. So I don't think it should be an either or is an either or, but we're not taught that.
Yeah, that's probably not encouraged, and probably some people don't understand it because they'd be like, well, but you have all of this stuff that you're doing, and
Right.
why would you divert your attention to put
Yeah.
into
True.
that thing? Because that
Right.
doesn't help you be a better pathologist, does it?
Right.
No.
Right.
Does it make me more of a person? Probably, but like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you said yes to talking with me about vulnerability in life and art. So I'll ask you maybe explicitly where you see vulnerability in your work as an artist.
I think just that as an artist that I share my work. It's a very vulnerable act to just kind of put yourself out there and see how people take it or don't take it, and be open to, particularly on public platforms, you're open to criticism or anything. So I think that in itself is a very vulnerable act. And I think, part of why I do it is that I trust it's okay to share it and to be seen. I think it's a little bit of letting yourself be seen by sharing your art, and knowing that that's an okay thing to do, or a relatively safe thing to do overall. Of course, there could be bad examples too. And so, yeah, I think just that I put myself on paper is a vulnerable thing, and then I let other people see it. So.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would ask you then, so, what is it that's being seen when Laura puts herself on the paper, like you said? What is it you think that people see?
I think they see probably a side of myself that I don't always necessarily want to represent to the world, that I do have a creative aspect, perhaps that I have a sense of humor that might not always be exposed to everybody too, that I think I have a fairly good eye at arranging things, and putting together a composition that hopefully will speak to someone else. Other people seem to appreciate my work in terms of the beauty, but also things speak to them that I'm kind of surprised why they're drawn to the different aspects or different pieces too. And I really kind of like that conversation that opens up, things that are unexpected, I didn't necessarily anticipate. And people come with their own stories or develop their own stories based off of their histories, and project that kind of on my art. And sometimes they share that uh, as well. Yeah, I think it's kind of a full circle thing, and that comes back and enriches my life and my curiosity, and kind of feeds back into that.
I'm just going to go off what I've seen on Instagram, right? But I feel a certain sense of drama. Like, I don't know if that's just me, but like I feel like when I look at a lot of your pieces, I'm like, that is like strongly dramatic. Is that something that you feel,
Yeah,
or
I think so. A little bit of boldness that comes out from that. Yeah, yeah, it's a little, it feels like a bold expression that's very satisfying. I don't know. Having like done it, it's like, yes, I feel like it's complete. And I think, I also on like Instagram, it is a digital representation of the actual work because it has been photographed. And I think there's a little bit of interesting translation from the actual analog piece into a digital piece that can emphasize perhaps some of that boldness or drama at times as well, and definitely alter the piece a little bit. I'm not saying that's bad or good, but it can make it a little bit different as to how it's seen from a digital aspect than on a physical piece of paper.
I guess that's one of the things that's so interesting about analog collage work and analog work of any form, is the picture that we take of something and that we put two-dimensionally to share is it doesn't, it probably shares different things. Like it loses
Hmm.
certain things, and maybe it also communicates other things that are not as evident in the actual physical piece. I'm always happy to see a physical works like collage. Well, we don't live in the same place, but like I would be really happy to see it in person. Like I would like to
Hmm.
see the
Hmm.
actual piece
Yeah.
up. But on Instagram, it's beautiful. Like the pieces are beautiful, but I would love to see the actual pieces
Yeah.
in actual physical form.
Yeah, it's fun to see the actual physical pieces because you can see the cut marks and the layers and those sort of subtle things that sometimes get lost in translation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's what you see in them, because I'm not always sure what other people see in them, to be honest. And I don't necessarily intend to, I guess, intend to portray that. It's just kind of what's coming out. So
So that's interesting too, right? Because that's a conversation I've had with some people, but like, what does it matter? So I might look and I see something in some of them, and I can share that with you. And maybe that is or isn't at all what you had in mind when you created it. But does that inform you moving forward, or like it doesn't really matter to the fact that people have these responses to your art? How do you feel about that?
Mostly I like it because it piques my curiosity about the person, I think. Like there's been a few pieces that I myself don't particularly love, but someone else does. And it's really interesting to kind of hear why that speaks to them. And as to does it matter? I mean, it might matter for me to try to better learn language to talk about my own work. I feel like that's something I don't have a ton of experience with, and perhaps I'm not very good at yet. And so, kind of getting that reflection back from you of some of the things that you see might help me learn language as to how to speak about my own work. Try that out. Does that seem right? Does that seem like it fits with what I'm feeling and expressing at the time that I'm making the piece? That can be kind of translated into the language of how to describe it down the road.
You're almost exactly the kind of person that I would try to speak with, and sometimes they're not as willing because they say, "Oh, but I'm not a full-time artist," or that's just a pastime or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but that's exactly like I love
Right.
that.
Well, to that effect, I don't see it as a hobby. I see
Yeah.
it as a part of myself. And for me, that's a important distinction
Thank you for
because I
that.
feel like
Thank
a
you.
hobby is an accessory, but being part of myself is part of why I live and breathe. And I miss it when I don't do it, and I have a hunger for it when I don't do it. So it feeds me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, 100%. I didn't mean it as a throwaway
No, no,
kind of thing, but
I
like
didn't think you did, but I try to, I think hobbies are easy to dismiss, and so I really don't think it's a hobby for me. And I also think as an individual, you have the right to call yourself an artist, no matter what the world seems to be telling you. So I think that's for yours to claim. And it took me a while to claim that, but I have claimed that I am an artist.
totally agree. And sometimes it's like, does the world see you as an artist, or do you see yourself as an artist? And if you can
Hmm.
see yourself as an artist, it kind of doesn't matter so much what anybody
Exactly.
else says about you. But you do need to invest the time for the practice. I think
Hmm.
that's the thing. And if you're drawn to it and you don't, it's a big miss.
Yeah,
But if you're
definitely.
drawn to it, yeah, and you do, even if there's another thing you might do to make money, to whatever, you have this thing that you do, but then you also have this artistic practice that you pursue, and you make it doesn't have to be equal time, but you don't preferentialize, that's not a word, but you don't you don't weight them
Right,
differently,
right, right.
that
Yeah.
they're parts of you. I think that's a beautiful thing. I love that.
Creating space and a room for practice and really being intentional about it. That's been an important thing for me in thinking about where does this fit into my life is really being intentional and prioritizing my art making as well as other things such as reading and being out in nature and stuff like that really kind of fit together and support this creative side of myself as well as myself as a whole person.
When you have a chance, go take a look through Laura's work on Instagram at imogene.awe.